Okay, this video is to give some tips and talk about the Candace drive-in net income Excel spreadsheet assignment. So, first thing is you'll see there's a lot going on the screen, and before I start reading through these instructions, I want to just point out that there's three tabs down here, three worksheets, what we call worksheets, and I'm going to click on the first one and just talk about each one of them. This one's called the payroll register. So first of all, what are we talking about here? Candace's drive-in. Just assume that it's like a Sonic drive-in, something like that. Okay, small restaurant, burgers and shakes restaurant. Okay, so here she's got Candace Owens is the owner, and she's got a manager, a lead crew member, and all the rest crew members. And notice most of them are making minimum wage, which is $12 an hour. And some of them that have been there longer maybe make a little more, $12.50, $13, and then the lead crew members $15. And then you got a manager making $28 an hour. And then the owner, she does not pay herself. She chooses to get paid based on the income statement here. Net income, net loss. And so that's where she gets her revenue, because she's the owner. Now, just wanted to point out the yellow sheets. The rest of this worksheet is locked. The yellow cells are the only ones that you can modify. So let's say I wanted to give this Thomas Sowell a raise. Give him $14 an hour, and I type in 14, hit enter. Notice all of these automatically updated, and I'm going to put that back. But I just want to point out that these are things you can modify in the future as we go through this. And then the hours worked. You can modify, like you could increase or decrease the hours of Candace's employees. Let's go back to, well, first I'll show you this one, employer taxes payable. This one you're not going to be modifying at all. It's simply here to show you where some of the numbers on the income statement come from. For example, the taxes payable to the state and federal government. And so for each of her employees, Candace withholds taxes. These numbers, notice 864, comes from right here, total tax withheld, 864 from each of their paychecks. And so that's this column. And then Candace has to pay payroll taxes. That's what these are, these three categories. These are all considered payroll taxes. And that's just one additional cost when you hire an employee. Most workers don't see that or don't know this because it's behind the scenes. The employee has to pay it on their behalf. So for example, this Ray Kroc down here, someone who's making $12 an hour. You'd say, okay, that's all it costs the employer. That's not true. It costs more than 12 because all of these additional dollars are paid on behalf of that to that employee to the government. So really, it's more like $13.50 or $14 an hour that it actually costs this employer to hire this employee, about $14 per hour instead of just 12. Okay, so these are more costs, and we're going to see these costs get transferred. Let's see here, right here. Where's the wages? Oh, that's from the first sheet. We got the wages right here, gross pay. And then we got the payroll taxes that she has to pay. And then when we go to the income statement, look at this. Wages. And then we've got payroll taxes. So they're both taxes that have to be paid to the state. But they get accounted in, or excuse me, this is the taxes that she has to pay. The other taxes are already deducted from these wages. So these are all of the expenses, the list of expenses, and then the sum of them is right here. So this is the total amount that she has in expenses for, and this is for 1 week of business. And then the gross sales go up here. So you always have an income statements, or what they call profit loss statements. It's always revenue minus expenses. Revenue would be total sales. That means how much money came in the door, and then how much money went out the door for that week for all of these expenses. And you're hoping as a business owner that this number is positive. In this case, it's negative. It's a negative 3,700. And how do you know that? Because the money coming in was smaller than the money going out, so it should be negative. So number one says, first adjust the advertising spending to see if you can increase the number of customers per week. Once you max out the number of customers by adjusting advertising, adjust the average price of meal to maximize your net income to the left. And it says you should be able to get a net income of at least $1,400. So that's step number one. All right, so if we're up here, let's say I lower the, what do you expect to happen if I lower my advertising how many, this is the number I'm looking at. How many customers per week would come in, more or less? And yes, you're correct. Less people will come in if I lower my number. If, let's say I go back up to 400, okay, then based on that, 600 customers will come in. If I go up to 700, let's just spend $1,000 and see what happens. Let's see, we've got 1,800. And so what I want you guys to do is adjust this number until this number is the highest, but spend as little as you can. You see how it didn't change from 1,000 down to 600, still 1,800 customers? That's because of diminishing returns. At some point, you've saturated the market, and everybody knows about your restaurant, and no matter how much more you spend, more people won't come in just because they don't like that type of food or they don't want that type of food. So you've maxed out your advertising dollars, and then every additional dollar you're diminishing, your returns are diminishing, meaning you're losing money on that. So you got to figure out what the optimum advertising budget is in order to maximize this number. So keep coming down with this number until this stays at 18, because that looks like that's the highest you're going to get. Then you're going to move this number around, and that's what number 2 says. Number 1 says, the second part of number 1 says, then adjust the price per meal. Now, what do you expect? If you increase the price per meal, do you expect more or less customers? Well, the higher the meal price, the fewer customers. My guess would be, so if I put, let's see here, if I type in $11 per meal, sure enough, it goes down to 400 people. If I put in $5 per meal, ooh, we get 3,000 customers. But now, instead of just looking at this number, now you're going to adjust this number, and this is the number that you're looking at. This is the number you care about. What is the optimum price to get the best net income or net income? And so obviously 5 is too low. 6, oh, look at that, the loss was a smaller. So you guys keep going. I think I started, where did I have it, at 7 when I first started the worksheet? Anyway, or 8. You keep going, you find the right price so that you have at least a net income where this is not a negative number, and it says you should be able to get at least 1,400. So keep adjusting that number until it gets to be at least 1,400. This 600 is still a little too high, so you're going to have to lower it a little more. Okay, so that's step 1. Then number 2, you are going to assume that the voters just voted to raise the minimum wage law to $15 per hour. Then you go back to the spreadsheet named Employee Payroll Register. That's this one. And you have to change all of the employees' minimum pay to at least $15 per hour. So I go back here, and I'm going to use the little fill handle. And now they're making at least 15. Now at those same hours, our total gross pay just went up, which means that's an expense to us, along with this expense, which is a total of all of these that Candace has to pay. So this number went up as well. And then, which means the income statement, so now we've got higher payroll taxes, we've got higher wages, and look at that, the loss went up, a bigger loss. So now you need to adjust. Actually, keep these numbers the same, and this is the big hint of this video. Once you finish number 1 and you have 1,400 here, or a little above 1,400, keep these numbers the same, and then what you're going to have to do, it says, Candace cannot stay in business if she's not making at least $1,200 per week net income in order to pay her bills and feed her family. Otherwise, she'll close her business and lay off all her workers. You may modify the yellow cells on the first spreadsheet and or on this spreadsheet to see if you can get her net income back above $1,200 after the new minimum wage law takes effect. So just a reminder, it has to be at least $15. So you can't adjust those lower than $15. And then when you're finished, so here's what you're going to do first. You're going to go over here. You have to keep that at $15. Now I bet this crew member, this lead crew member, is upset because Rose Wilder, she's worked her way up. She was at 12 when she first started. She's probably put in at least a year's worth of work, or maybe a year and a half. And the bosses like her, the owner and the manager, and so they've have her be a lead crew member that probably trains new employees. So that's why she was getting $2 more than the minimum wage. But now check this out. She's like, what? They're getting the same price I am, and I'm much more valuable to to the store. So that's like a slap on her face. It's like, that's not fair. So what is the owner going to do? Is the owner going to move it up to $16 and say, look, I value you more than them, so I'll give you a little more than them? Well, what does that do to the bottom line? Makes it even worse. And so the owner's like, look, I've got to do something to stay in business. Oh, if I'm losing money, if I'm not making at least $1,200, or I'm sorry, it was, what was it? Yeah, $1,200. It's not worth it to me to stay in business. I need to be making at least $1,200 here. So what can we do? And what you guys need to do is adjust the hours here. And or if you want to adjust this, you just can't go lower than 15 because that's the minimum by the law now. So you're going to have to adjust hours and until you get this number down, or I should say get this number up to $1,200 a week. Okay. Once you get there, then you're going to go ahead and save the file with your name, submit it on the Schoology page, and then there's another assignment. There's a video that you're going to be watching, a minimum wage law video, that talks about what's happening, what's going on here.